Glamour does not exist for every military product ever created, regardless of the era of their introduction. Sometimes there are just limited operations, or limited roles for certain war machines. But despite this, there is a need for them all the same. Perhaps one of the most fascinating looking new battlemechs of the current age. This product of the Capellan Confederation not only garrisons worlds and takes up light combat actions, but it looks good doing it. And if it is underestimated, even the best battlemechs ever built might just be done in by it. Without further delay, let us begin looking at Kair's Metal Industries' Gwen. A light mech weighing in at 20 tons, the Gwen was built with a clear purpose in mind, which was to garrison regions, and if needed, participate in offensive operations as well as defensive operations, as an infantry support battle mech. The idea of an infantry support mech has been tried before, and in most instances the results are mixed, or perhaps often even border on failure. These machines are muddled designs typically, but not so far for the Gwen. While other garrison or infantry support mechs tend to be cheap in their cost, the fact the Gwen is an Omnimech saves the design and creates a truly fearsome force as a strategic defender and asset, as well as a powerful tool to help infantry forces throughout the Capellan Confederation. Introduced originally in 3134, just as hostilities between House Liao and the Republic would begin to take off once more, this battlemech was a fantastic addition to the CCAF. First, its default configurations are all superb at the job it's meant to do. A lance of Gwen battlemechs with various roles can support battle armor and infantry in significant ways, filling in holes in their own capabilities. Heavy weaponry on some variants, anti-infantry weaponry on others, and then a backup of mechanized or motorized infantry units can be extremely effective, especially when these 20-ton creatures have battle armor units riding atop them from location to location. Another benefit for these mechs are the fact that while yes, they can be overmatched by more expensive and powerful machines, they are able to easily be reconfigured between battles, should they survive them against what is typically expected opposition. One thing that often gets forgotten is that a mech, much like the ones I've just covered prior like the Lament, can be supremely useful tactically in a single engagement, but may run into severe problems with logistics, repairs, supplies, or other things of that nature. The Gwen is by contrast a strategically fantastic machine for all of the value it brings to the Capellan Confederation. Despite being an Omnimech, it is relatively inexpensive. Its use of Omni technologies, in this case not for radical configurations of rare weapon systems, but for effective locally produced weaponry that can be slotted in before engagements based on anticipated opposition, is a fantastic boon. Even when facing off against mechs or forces that may overmatch the local garrison, they will slot the A configuration, which has a heavy PPC, in hopes to deliver enough damage to dissuade their opponents, or to destroy enough of their numbers as to weaken them. Requiring equipment to hunt down hidden targets? There's a configuration for that. Enemy infantry and light vehicles causing trouble? There's a configuration for that as well. Each time these are deployed, it is with the anticipation that they will be with infantry, battlesuits, and vehicles, acting as a component of an overall larger force. True combined arms. It is a superb battlemech in its design role, and in regards to battle armor, the Gwen is a favorite of these ground forces, as they are often ferried from battle to battle by their 20-ton light mech ally. It's more than just being ridden into battle per se, as the mech can either stick around and provide support for these teams, or it can pull back and bring up reinforcements in prolonged engagements. A great example of the Gwen's deployment would be in 3144, where much of what was described came together after the fall of New Hessen. Local miners and citizens were upset at their political leadership for having surrendered to the CCAF, and revolted, murdering several of said leadership before loading up their mining and loader mechs, technical vehicles and other Republic garrison vehicles that had been left behind, along with a ground-on-foot militia, in order to strike back against their new masters. The Capellans only had minimal assets in the area, but it was composed of a well-thought-out force. Namely, they brought infantry fighting vehicles, a few artillery and assault vehicles using Arrow 4 missile systems, and a lance of Big Mac's Gwen light mechs. Once Mechwarrion's armored cavalry intervened with their Gwen battlemechs, a decisive, brutal victory took place. 2 Gwen primes, a Gwen A and a Gwen B, intervened. They guided artillery on point as they lit up the industrial mechs with a combination of heavy fire from the light mechs. Quickly, the vehicle and mech assets were done away with, turning into smoldering, burnt-out husks from the combined assault. Many of the militia were vaporized or worse by incoming plasma fire in what could be described as a massacre. Infantry forces were brought up, and the Gwen B utilized its Bloodhound active probe to find the hidden remaining forces that had scattered. Order was restored, and the Capellan Confederation is still on New Hessen to this day, having returned order in the name of the Chancellor, set on liberating all of their ancestral territories from the Republic of the Sphere, whether they want to be restored to that order or not. There is a great deal of real work that takes place in these ugly occupied worlds after the big battles are fought, and even then, big battles may see the appearance of the Gwen should those battles come to the doorstep of the CCAF's guarded worlds. The Gwen is a superb strategic asset. It is just as important to realize that it is not an infallible machine, however. It is just built for a role, and it is built very smartly for that role. The Capellans themselves would export the Gwen to 2 outside powers due to their friendly relations with them. One being Canopus, who use it as much more of a frontline unit more frequently, and the other being the Duchy of Andurien, their latest ally, who now appears to perhaps be their latest enemy. In fact, Canopus itself may become such an enemy as well. One could argue that the Gwen is in fact a major contributor to the Confederation's ability to have occupied and managed opposition against their rule in the now dead Republic of the Sphere. This Battlemech is, in its own way, a symbol of the death of that very institution. The irony, of course, being is that it is the exact opposite approach in nature and construction as compared to the hyper-expensive and unreliable assets the Republic of the Sphere brought to the field. I am sure that Devlin Stone and Joan 11 began to realize this tragedy by the end. Being an Omnimech, the GN20 utilizes omnipod space, instead of being a set design per se, and as a result has a base foundation of equipment, such as its engine and internal structure, but its onboard systems are easily changed out due to the use of pod space, changing configurations as necessary. The Gwen is one of the mechs that has a very small engine, that actually needs to use critical inside of the mech to cover its base heat sinks on board even, and it fits them into the right torso, left torso, and arms. It has 10 double heat sinks in total, letting it reduce its heat by 20 every turn. No official configuration adds additional heat sinks. In order to save weight on board, it installs endosteel for its frame, dropping the tonnage of its internal structure from 2 to 1. It also installs an XL gyro, which drops the weight of its gyro to a mere 0.5 tons, and once more saves weight for this tonnage-starved weight class. It has a small cockpit on board, which harms the piloting skill rules of the Mechwarrior inside, but once more, this is done to save weight. Its onboard communications package is the Hellespont Tight Beam system, and its targeting and tracking array is the formidable Apple Churchill 2000, which provides it with the improved targeting quirk, which applies to short-range brackets. This is very important when playing with the advanced rules and gives the Gwen a major advantage. This means that targets which fall within the short-range bracket for its weapon become 1 easier to hit for the Gwen's weaponry, and this benefits every single one of its official configurations due to its use of long-range weaponry. because that means that they have very large distance coverage for their short-range brackets for an inner sphere mech. Much like the Flea, a Battlemech from the ancient era of the Star League, another 20-ton support mech in fact, the Gwen's greatest weakness is perhaps the fact that it does not prioritize speed. It uses a 3-ton Rawlings 100 standard fusion engine for its main propulsion, which gives it a maximum speed of 86 km per hour, or 8 movement points in the tabletop game. This is a problem should the Gwen end up in a struggle with another competent light mech, as it will not be fast enough to maneuver to deal with them, or to gain enough of a defensive bonus to protect itself from incoming fire adequately. With that said, however, ideally the Gwen will not have to deal with this situation, as it's not designed to be unsupported when engaging such targets. But plans do rarely survive contact with the enemy, and it is noteworthy for this 20-ton machine. The Gwen is most definitely an underperformer in the realm of movement for its size. It needs to make up for these shortcomings though, somewhere else obviously. The Flea was considered to be dramatically under-armored for its time as well, with only 1.5 tons of protection. It is also noteworthy that the Flea was also another infantry support mech by many metrics upon its introduction. The Gwen in many ways is its spiritual, much more effective successor, and it is still under-armored itself, with only 3.5 tons of standard plating on board. While this isn't awful for a 20-ton light mech, even if it may be classified as limited in this realm, it doesn't have the speed to rely on as a further shield. As a consequence, the Gwen is most definitely underprotected as well, though mostly against heavily armed enemy units, which again, is not the ideal targets for who the Gwen is meant to be facing in an unsupported format. It must attempt to mask this weakness through cooperation with other assets that it is being deployed with. Where the Gwen is most certainly best supported is in the realm of available pod space. While it is relatively slow and potentially poorly protected, there has to be an offset somewhere, and that somewhere is in the realm of pod space. The XL gyro, the small cockpit, the limited engine, as well as the low armor plating all serve one purpose, which is to give this 20-ton Battlemech 10 tons of pod space. 50% of its onboard weight is dedicated to modular systems, which more often than not are offensive systems. Anyone who views this 20-ton platform as being incapable due to some of its more limiting aspects will be quickly reminded with a very powerful blast where that tonnage was spent. And with the advanced rules, better yet, at close ranges they will particularly find this mech has a bite. The prime configuration of the GN20 is a great balance of firepower and function. In order to punch holes in targets, and in order to deliver horrifying terror onto vehicles and infantry, the Prime is equipped with a plasma rifle in its right arm. This is a versatile system with a reasonable range, especially against anticipated opposition. It has 20 rounds of ammunition overall, giving it a reasonable lifespan of usability on the battlefield. Were that not enough, in its left arm it comes equipped with twin ER medium lasers for backup, giving it a harder punch against vehicles and mechs as needed. It has balanced, powerful firepower, and will not overheat often while running and gunning with its weapons package. It still has the same weaknesses as before. It's not particularly fast for its weight, and it's not particularly well defended either, but it can put the hurt on its opponents, even Battlemechs, when placed and used wisely. Ideally, it will be supporting vehicle and infantry in their own operations though, which it can do exceptionally. Designed with one purpose in mind, the A configuration uses the entirety of its pod space on a single system, which is a right arm mounted heavy PPC. This is a hole-punching, heavy anti-mech weapon system with long range, and has the ability to decapitate almost every enemy mech in the game, barring those with specific shielding to PPCs and energy weaponry. It exists solely for dedicated mech and vehicle hunting, and supports infantry and battle armor by being an enormous cannon on legs. Despite being the least versatile of the official configurations, one must respect what that cannon is able to do. To not do so is foolish in the extreme. In essence, the B configuration is an electronic warfare asset. It installs an Angel ECM to assist it and others within its unit with countermeasures and defenses for a start. It also uses a Bloodhound active probe in order to zero in on hidden enemy formations, and to counter enemy electronic warfare systems of their own. It also comes with a tag in order to call in nearby artillery assets and paint targets. This makes it, again, a great support platform for infantry, providing these assets to them. In addition, for traditional offensive firepower, it is equipped with an ER large laser that once more helps punch holes in enemy vehicles or lighter mechs. With its perks as well and the long range of this weapon, it can often deliver accurate fire at close ranges as well. The Gwen is an asset that the CCAF and other allied states have that is an exceptional piece of equipment. It's light, it can be re-equipped and repaired rapidly, and it can fight battles in occupied regions or against light attacks, while supporting dedicated local infantry forces or armored units. It is a tool for a healthy military force in occupation, or even in the attack or outright defense. It can fill most of the needed roles it has to for the infantry units which it is supporting, whether that be providing heavy weapons and anti-mech support with the A configuration, or providing electronic warfare with the B configuration. The Prime is a perfect vehicle hunter and infantry killer itself, and provides superb support once again. All three variants, as demonstrated on New Hessen, work together exceptionally well, and are designed to work together, while working with battle armor, infantry, and tanks. Just don't expect the GN-20 to defeat a Lament, because it's not meant to. The Gwen is a battlemech with a clear role and purpose on the field. It's not there for recon, or to participate in fast run-and-gun battles like many of its counterparts in the light space. It is, for all purposes, a replacement for the urban mech, but one which can actually function in combat. It can hold down worlds with diverse tactics and an array of functions, while supporting the infantry and local forces that are stationed there adequately to deal with problems using combined arms warfare. It is a perfect mech for these low-intensity conflicts. Fight smarter, not harder. This is what the Gwen excels at. It is a battlemech that will see more service than many of its peers, on more battlefields, handling the problems the state has that may prevent it from otherwise operating, or allowing for even greater successes to be made elsewhere. The wisdom of the Chancellor was truly divinely inspired when he deemed this model worthy of the CCAF. It will be a shield against the misery of insurrection and probing attacks, all while the Capellan Confederation plans its grand victory over the denizens on Terra, bringing celestial wisdom and glory to all the people of the Inner Sphere, under the banner of the true First Lord, Chancellor Liao Daoshen. And what will final victory bring? Only the celestial wisdom is so far-sighted to see the future clearly, but the Capellan people will bask in the glory of having achieved their total liberation. Thank you for joining me here today. I have links to the Gwen's miniature configurations from Iron Wind Metals in the video description if you are interested in grabbing it or any of its configurations. But on another note, if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to the channel. I do updates very frequently and you'll be happy with the content, I think. Also, a huge thank you to all the YouTube members for this channel. When you hit the join button and become a member, you take an extra step in supporting the content on this channel, and I can't thank you enough, because this content is genuinely only possible because of viewers like you. And with that, I will see you all in the comment section below.